Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to our channel and thanks for logging on. If you enjoy these videos, do me a favor and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Watchbox Reviews. I'd really appreciate it, and I'd be able to send watches like this to your inbox as soon as tomorrow. If you like this watch, you can purchase it on our website, thewatchbox.com. Buy, trade, and sell luxury watches 24 hours a day and globally on thewatchbox.com. This is the Portuguese Perpetual Calendar 5023-07, a 7-day automatic perpetual calendar white gold distillation of everything awesome about IWC. And indeed, this is a best of everything watch for the manufacturer from Schaffhausen. You can see on my wrist, 16 centimeters in circumference. Despite the size of the case, it wears well, 44.2 millimeters in diameter. It's a fairly thick watch too at 15.9, though the concave bezel does visually pare it down a bit. Lug to lug, it's a broad 52.7, but you'll find that it does wear well, and you can see why in this profile shot. The lugs really curve downward rather dramatically with a tight tucked taper, and they project minimally beyond the flanks of the case. Should you wish to accessorize, you can see that the lug spacing is a broad and nicely proportioned 22 millimeters, so you'll have many OEM and aftermarket strap options. Now the watch has a lot of heft to it. It is a wonderfully dense white gold case, so you have the discretion of a white metal. To onlookers, it could be polished tie, it could be steel, but you'll know that it's 18 karat. You can see the profile of the lugs well from this angle, and the strap itself is marvelously substantial. It's a minimally bolstered, medium rectangular scale, medium brown alligator leather. You can see it has a folded edge, a monotone stitch, calfskin on the underside, and the buckle, like the rest of the watch, is white gold, and it is a very substantial piece. As you can see, satin on the inside as well as polished on the flanks with a nicely faceted, beveled, polished, and satin finished top. The nice thing about having a very substantial clasp under a very substantial watch is that one counterweights the other, so if you like to wear your watches loose, this one's not going to have any inclination to move around on your wrist thanks to that heavy clasp. You'll also note that the case lines are classic Portuguese, a combination of satin-finished flanks and high-polished contrasts with blended lugs. These blended lug profiles were all the rage for round watches during the 30s. That's why the Patek Philippe reference 96, the first so-called Calatrava, as well as the 1939 Portuguese reference 325 feature essentially the same lug profiles, despite the fact that they were about 9 to 10 millimeters apart in size. Now the watch is wonderfully subtle with that contrast, as well as the somewhat concave bezel profile that, yes, again, like a Patek Philippe, is both handsome and serves to pare down the visual mass of the watch. The timepiece, when viewed head-on, is essentially all dial, as the bezel is pared down visually as well as minimized in thickness to allow the dial to expand to the very edge of this case. Now all of that real estate is put to good use. As you can see, many calibrations and individual indications on this dial. Let's start with the classical elements germane to the Portuguese. Leaf or foy style hands, as you can see at center, with a railroad track outboard, vintage features dating back to the 30s. You'll also note applied white gold Arabic numerals, as has long been the tradition on the upscale Portuguese models. Entry-level pieces generally include printed or punched, and then there's a small white gold index outboard of each white gold numeral. The dial is what IWC describes as ardoise sunburst, essentially a slate or anthracite, somewhere between silver and black. As you can see, we'll get as focused as we can to show the sharp details. There's a little bit of an azurage guilloche cut to each of the sunken sub-registers, and the watch has a gorgeous bilateral cruciform symmetry. You will note that there are a couple of compound registers. There's a power reserve scale for the 7 days of autonomy, as well as a radial date at 3 o'clock, months at 6. You have year, decade, century, and millennium. This is a sequential perpetual calendar. It moves in one direction only. And you can see there's both constant seconds and a day of the week indication at 9 o'clock. The nice thing about the watch is that you pull the crown, and now you actually have the ability to set the watch, if you pull the crown sufficiently, hack the movement, you can set the watch to the second by halting the seconds hand. That despite the fact that you have a moon phase accurate to intervals of hundreds of years, both large and small time formats respected by this setting system. Now, The watch also features a wonderful manufacturer movement that is properly sized for the case. This is IWC caliber 51613. As you can see, a sensational 62 joules bidirectional automatic winding, 7-day power reserve. It uses IWC's pawl-based Peloton bidirectional winding system. And as you can see, this one actually features ceramic pawls to reduce the wear and tear as well as tendency to create dirt on the movement that an exposed pawl-based winding system can sometimes create. So very durable as well as very shock resistant. But Peloton has long been one of the toughest and most efficient winding systems in the industry. It's also been copied to death by others. You can only be first once. The system was invented by IWC watchmaker Albert Peloton in the late 1940s, industrialized in the early 1950s. Now you'll note that the balance beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour, and that it is free sprung for toughness. It's also adjusted in 5 positions like a chronometer, and you can actually see if you stop the watch, it's a little bit easier to see. There is a Breguet overcoil profile to the hairspring so that the watch will keep good time and the hairspring will beat concentrically in every position and every orientation with respect to gravity. Do you want more? You got it. The Kurt Claus Perpetual Calendar system that is used on this watch is fully sequential. Now, Kurt Claus was a successor to Albert Peloton. Their careers briefly overlapped, but you can see that the Perpetual Calendar system has every register. What you can't see is that in addition to all the information you could want from the moon phase to the millennium, it's coordinated, mechanically programmed. So all you do is pull the crown to its second position and advance the date for the month you're in. If you can set a 3-hand Rolex date, you can set this perpetual calendar. Everything, including the moon and the year, moves in sync. You cannot get them out of sync thanks to the mechanical programming. That was the genius of Kurt Claus's perpetual calendar system, which is also shared with Jaeger-LeCoultre, as they could not improve upon it. And the movement, naturally, properly sized to fit an oversized case. Over 36 millimeters in diameter, the movement by itself is one of the largest automatics in the world, bigger than a Rolex 36mm Datejust. Finally, there's a gold medallion, a real solid gold medallion, inside the skeletonized winding rotor, so this is also a rich as well as technically refined movement. 30 meters water resistant. There are better options to go swimming in the Schaffhausen catalog, but make no mistake, for almost all occasions, this watch has a timeless quality as well as the ability to tell time in any increment. You can see it and make it yours on the watch box.